Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 207, recorded on Friday, July 15th, 2022. Zoho voice becomes textually active. Tyler, let's hope that she lives in a blue state. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing good. And with that bombshell, let's get right on into the show. I guess before we do,
All right.
I had a sales call a couple days ago with someone who's been watching the show a long time. You know who you are, and he used the word unhinged. He said Brett has become a little bit unhinged lately, and I think that's the perfect way to describe it. We all got a kick out of that. Something's in the
Was it
water
in a
out there
good
these
way
past
or a
couple of
bad
weeks.
way?
It was a good way. I'm gonna assume it was a good way. He's a fan of the show, so think he'll
All
take
right,
it
well, I'll try
take
to
it as it
rehinge
comes, right?
myself, I guess. I don't know, you know. All righty. In events, as always, we do our CRM Zen Show live every Friday morning at 10, every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, except next week, Tyler. Next week, we're going to be doing it on Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Um, I am got to get on the road early Friday morning, but I still wanted to do the show. So got a small change on the schedule that way. Other than that, we'll be on our usual schedule. Zoho user groups are here. We've got the full Zoho Analytics tutorial coming up on July 19th. That's going to be you and Greg. I'm sitting out this one, so that will be good to see. Um, and then overview of Zoho People. That's being put on by the People team. So that's on Tuesday, July 19th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you're a Zoho People user, I would be sure to check that out. And as always, all the events can be found over at zenatta.com/events. We try to keep track of all the events in the world of Zoho, whether they're put on by us, other partners, Zoho, anybody who's doing anything on Zoho. If we can find them, we're going to post them up there. So if you're actually someone putting on an event, send it over to us. We'd love to add it to our calendar. With that, Tyler, we actually have an extremely busy news week, so let's get right on into the news. All right. So we missed this one last week. And the reason we missed it is there were so many comments on it right after it dropped that it appeared to be an old post that had just come back up to the top. But
Got it.
Zoho Creator released their roadmap for the rest of 2022. A lot of new features that are coming into Zoho Creator. If you are a Creator user, you will want to look at this post, be in our newsletter, be in our show notes. As you went through this, Tyler, was there anything here that really jumped out as you as because there's a lot of stuff for the next 6 months.
Yeah, there's kind of a lot of things up at the top that are more UI based, choosing some fonts, choosing some color coding, things on that kind of nature. Definitely nice to have, just anything you can do to make an application feel good to use. Couple updates for subforms, being able to sort them properly as a list when you use them on the record, as well as being able to do kind of like a pop out subform, which just make it a little bit easier to fill it out. They're also kind of building out a lot more AI models, which I think is going to be interesting in Creator, things like optical character recognition and things of that nature. So if you wanted to build kind of a more automated application, they're going to be plugging in more of those types of tools. So kind of that first quarter is going to be a lot of things in the UI, right? Subform updates, font choices, a couple of those AI tools, more connections as well and extensions, right? With an app like Creator, of course, you want to be able to connect it to as many third-party sources as possible. And then headed into 2023, looks like they're going to be rolling out the Canvas builder for Creator.
That's
That one's going to be
fascinating, isn't it?
interesting. Yeah, it's going to be very, very cool. One of the interesting things with Creator is that you can build extremely custom pages using HTML, but you can never really customize how the forms themselves look. So, you'd kind of have this beautiful page and then you'd click to submit something and it would open up a pretty much standard Creator form. So, being able to match those is going to be pretty slick. Subforms inside of stateless forms. That one's a very unique use case, but if you don't want to store any data and you just want to submit it, you can now set those up as a stateless tool. Couple updates for single sign-on or OTP logins, Deluge editor updates, so a couple more screenshots or shortcuts, full screen mode, and some general enhancements. One that I do really like in there is that error message are going to be shown while scripting rather than waiting for you to save the script. Generally, when we're writing code, we are saving and executing constantly as we're adding things to make sure we're not introducing errors. But if it can just tell you like, hey, that's improperly formatted right as you type it, definitely going to save you some time. So they definitely stay busy over there. There's an
Yep.
application we use a lot, obviously internally with our own systems as well as for clients. So I think a lot of these are great updates to see on their roadmap.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. All right, let's moving on with the news here a little bit. Zoho Writer has now introduced workflows to streamline document process. So if you're working on a document in Writer, you can have it ready for review, in review, approved, in approval, approved. Kind of nice. They've got some pre-built workflows in here. So as you're working on a document, you can actually have it go through a stage, comments. Pretty nice all the way around. I mean, Zoho, this team, we talk about it all the time, but they just continue to improve the entire Office suite. And these real time. I mean, I'm going through here, real time document status notifications and email, and
Yeah.
uh, you get the visual workflow tracker as well. There's just it's just a
Really
lot, and
interesting
they keep
stuff.
doing
I
it.
mean, I think a cool use case that kind of pops into mind is like, you create a proposal automatically via the CRM, right? And it goes through some type of approval process before it can be sent for signature. Right. So I could see a lot of use cases, especially when you're tying in Writer to other applications, right? Where like you can set up all these approvals inside the CRM, but at the end of the day, if the document can go out without an approval at that final step when the customer is actually going to sign it, right? That can be kind of a dangerous concept. So pretty cool to be able to set those up. I can think right off the top of my head of, 4 or 5 different times that this might have come in handy.
Yeah, I can. It just what I find fascinating about this team is, I also in parallel we have Google Docs, and I don't think Google Docs has changed in 5 years. I don't think there's been an
Nothing
improvement there.
significant, right? Like nothing really new.
Nothing major, and it's not like the Zoho Office team is trying to catch up. They were caught up a long time ago. Now it's just improvement after improvement. So kudos to the team over there. All right, and moving on. This is interesting. Zoho Voice has now introduced two-way SMS to help you improve customer engagement. Um, I've read through this article in detail. There are a lot of little SMS services out there. Uh, this is interesting. I can't tell. The two-way SMS, by the way, if you're in Canada, US, you've got to get a separate number. But I can't tell if it's going to log it to the CRM. There's no mention of that. Um, we've got to try this out. The pricing is very, very reasonable. You're paying, you know, basically a little less than a penny to send, and the same, like nine tenths or 9 tenths of a cent. Anyway, very little coming through here, but um, I can't quite get if there's integration here, if they're going to write it back. It's hard to say. Um, it anyway. Look, we're going to have to give it a shot, Tyler, and see if there's
Yeah.
anything here. I mean, but two-way SMS,
Really?
we've talked about
Yeah.
this. There are just dozens of applications that do that. They log it to the CRM. Smooth Messenger was one of the best. It worked with Twilio. They've actually changed. We're going to have Jeremy Nagel on the show here. He reached out to me. He sold the whole Smooth Messenger to another company that's kind of a Twilio competitor, so it's all running through there now.
Interesting.
But I don't know. We'll see what they've got going here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really want Zoho Voice to work out. Um,
Me too.
there's nothing I would love more than to stop having to work with Ring Central. They do make a great product, but man, it can be a pain in the butt sometimes. So I would love to just be running when one of our clients needs VoIP. I'd love to just use Zoho, right? Get it done, get it turned on. If it's kind of natively tied into all these different products, I'd have to imagine that's the long-term plan, right? Is to basically tie all this stuff into CRM and into Desk and into the core applications. So maybe we need to take another swing, get another demo account set up, and take it for a test ride. But
Yeah.
man, it would sure be nice if we could just run all of our clients' VoIP directly out of Zoho.
Yeah. If the head of the product team for Zoho Voice is listening, reach out. Love to jump on a call with you and go through this. I think it might be valuable. We have a lot of clients we can move over. It's just the launch was a little rough, and so we kind of gave it
Port
that chance.
numbers yet? Have they added that? You can port your
Gosh, I
numbers
hope.
over? I remember when it
I did
launched, you couldn't, and that was pretty much a kill shot for most people.
exactly, and I don't know where it is at this point, but we need to look back into it. But anyway, it's good progress. Two-way SMS is great. They give the smallest of little screenshots here, and it's kind of intimating, that it's in the contacts module. It doesn't say CRM anywhere though. They
Yeah, it's
never
not an
use the
option there
words.
yet.
They never use the word
I'm assuming they're
CRM.
gonna add it as an extension or something, because that's not quite
Yeah,
the CRM UI there.
no, it's not, and it's interesting. You can do this, and it's a little misleading because with Ring Central, you can just hover over a contact in the CRM and send an SMS. It doesn't log it anywhere,
Mm,
unless you're using other third-party extensions. I mean, there's all kinds of of little quirks around SMSing internally, and also they mentioned they're going to do this in Zoho campaigns. So let's face it, text messaging is a huge thing. The tracking of text messages for some businesses is major. So hopefully, this is the first step in the right direction. Alrighty, and moving on, Zoho Connect now has an ultimate edition. Um, Enterprise intranet that transforms employee engagement and culture and work. If you're not familiar with Connect, it is a really interesting product, mostly used as an intranet for companies, meaning internal employee communication, although it can be an extranet where you're actually outside of the company communication as well. You can set it up that way. It is a Swiss Army knife of stuff. For the longest time, Tyler, I think we thought it had absolutely the best task management of any of the Zoho products. And in many ways, it does. It has crazy features that even Zoho Tasks doesn't have. So there's just a lot of interesting there. Anyway, they've got this Ultimate Edition. Looks like they've given it kind of a UI overhaul. You've got some, you know, gamification and gratitude and anyway, they're just adding a whole bunch of new little modules to this ultimate edition. I don't know, I don't think we get it with our Zoho One account. We need to get a copy of this so we can play with it though and see what they've done. Love Zoho Connect in a lot of ways. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of sits it's in such a weird spot because
yeah,
for most of your Zoho Click kind of supersedes so many things you'd want to do on an internal basis. And then you've
yep,
got Zoho Learn, which is kind of your whole internal LMS, and Connect
yep.
has those kind of things as well. And it's just it's strange overlap.
Yeah, it's an interesting application. We'll have to take a look at this one specifically and kind of see what is added with Ultimate and where that might kind of tip it over the edge where a customer would really need to use it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those applications that, despite being so good, we don't generally see too much demand to implement it. Right. And so, like you mentioned, we used to use it for some internal task management, which is good for that kind of simple stuff, similar to like a Trello board.
Yeah.
But cool updates. It's just one of those apps that I almost wish we had more opportunity to play with. But, most of the people that we're working with are asking us about CRM projects, desk, analytics, books, kind of those core workflow applications.
And the Connect, like you said, between Learn and Click, you kind of get, a lot of the features here. I mean, this does have a calendar, and there's so many little features in Connect. Anyway, Zoho uses this for their entire partner communication. So they've got a partner Connect. They use Zoho Connect for that. It's where all the partners engage with each other. So interesting application. Be curious. We haven't had a Connect update in a long time. So be
Yep.
curious to take a look at what this Enterprise Edition looks like. Okay. And now this is really interesting. You can enhance your customer experience using Zia's next best experience. So rather than kind of skim through this article, I'll just kind of do some screenshots. So what Zia is going to do is it's going to scan through all of your deals and it's going to look at all your closed deals and what worked, what didn't work. And then when you have an open deal, it is going to basically give you here's the next best thing you should be doing. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you're in the deal, and the next best experience is to arrange a meeting in 5 days. So it's basically
Mhm.
telling you in 5 days you should arrange a meeting. Or it's going to say, hey, the next best experience for this person is to create a call in 2 days. Or the
Interesting.
next best experience is to send an email within 10 days. Um, And I guess it's going to look back at what your overall history on closed deals was, what worked, what the timing was, what you should be
Really
doing.
cool.
It looks pretty insane. A couple caveats on this, though. You have to have 20 or more licenses. And you have to have telephony integrated, and you must be set up on the new email edition. And it's 20 or more licenses of Enterprise or Ultimate Edition. Um, it's not turned on our instance. We're over 20 licenses and we're enterprise and we have telephony and we've got the new email configuration. So I think there's actually some configuration you have to do to turn it on the back end. I was looking at Zia before we
Love it.
went here, but I have to say that this whole next best thing, I know it's early in the game, but pretty sweet.
I know it's a cool idea. Really cool idea to basically look at your data set, right, and try to make some of those assumptions for you. I mean, it's a common thing that customers ask us is, help us figure out what's working. And it's difficult to do by hand, right? I mean, you can surely pull analytics tables and try to figure out, of deals that you closed, how many calls normally happen before a close and things like that. But for a little AI tool to basically just be sitting in there, right, running some machine learning and looking for those trends behind the scenes, it's really nice because getting someone to pull that data for you is not a quick job. It's a big job. And so if Zia
Yep.
can take some of that heat off and kind of do some of the analysis for you, there's a ton of value there. It's a very cool idea.
Yeah, I'd love to. When this goes, it'd be interesting to have a little report you could run or fire off tasks around this as well,
Yeah.
right? Zia recommends rather than you clicking into the deal and seeing. I mean, if you had a task,
Yeah, if it could
you
auto
could have
spit out a
recommended
task, set a
tasks.
meeting. Yeah, set a meeting, give a call if the task could kind of pop up. It's really
Yeah,
cool though.
so
I
it's
mean,
like,
as like a first step for how to use some machine learning for your pipeline, like this is a very cool way to do it.
yeah, good on the CRM team there and the Zia team. And moving on with the news, um, you now have advanced statistics for LinkedIn page posts and monitor mentions in Zoho Social. So they've really improved. If you're a user of Zoho Social, if you're not familiar with it, I guess the product that is most popular on the market is Hootsuite. This allows you to manage all of your social media in one place. You can see all of the comments, all of the posts, what the engagement with those posts is. You can schedule out your posts. You can collaborate on posts and schedule them out. It's actually an excellent tool. We use it. We like it a lot. Um, LinkedIn has always been a little bit of a weak spot, kind of the weak link, if you will, in the reporting that they've had in Zoho Social. So
Very
this is
nice.
nice. They've really improved it.
Yes, it looks like you're able to now track the mentions, able to track some additional performance reports, which again, really nice when reports can just happen for you and you don't have to make them. I think especially for those that are in kind of the B2B space, LinkedIn is a huge element of your social media marketing. So lots and lots of value there to be added. And, these reports are pretty cool, right? They're actually giving you some like, an example as page views by the industry of who's viewing it, right? So kind of reaching into LinkedIn and telling you what types of people are interested in your posts. Also doing that same thing for videos on LinkedIn, which I don't know about you, Brett, but I've seen more and more video marketing getting posted to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So pretty well thought out updates. Oftentimes, what I've seen with the social team is that they are really only limited by what these platforms will give them in their API. So oftentimes, big updates like this come shortly after LinkedIn opening more data, right, for these types of third party providers. And they're generally really quick to get it added. I remember when Instagram messages used to not be available in Zoho Social, and people be frustrated, but it was actually Instagram that wasn't allowing it. And I think it was within like a week of Instagram allowing these types of services to hit messages, it was added to Zoho Social. So they're generally pretty on top of this, pulling in just about everything that they can from any of these platforms. And this is kind of in line with that. So shout out to
Yeah.
that team.
They
It's a big
always do.
one.
Yeah, it's nice. And LinkedIn, I think for a lot of businesses, people of all the social media platforms, I think in a business to business aspect, LinkedIn is a really interesting one
Yeah.
to participate in. All righty, and moving on with this lot of news we have this week. Zoho Projects now is allowing you to issue reports at the org level. So in
Got it.
reporting, you could not do this. So now you can, you've got reports on projects, tasks, and timesheets, and you can now do it at the organizational level as well. So if you're using
Got
Zoho
it.
projects for your reporting, it's pretty good stuff. I don't know, Tyler, is it we normally pull all this stuff into analytics if you're doing this kind of reporting anyway, and this is a nice to have.
Almost always. That's kind of what I was thinking out of the gate. Almost always we pull this into analytics because, and don't get me wrong, this is nice. So like you do want to be
It
able
is.
to pull reports on issues, right? So in the same way that you want to see tasks that are going forward, you want to see these issues that have popped up and where they're tracking. Um, so really nice to have for those who don't have Zoho Analytics. Maybe they just have projects. This is like a need to have, right? And it used to just not be there. Oftentimes for us, what we find is that people will want a more holistic view of workload by user. And for workload management, you don't really care if someone's working on a task or on an issue. You care about how much planned work they have in total, right? So a lot of the times we do end up pulling this over to Zoho Analytics. But being able to see this natively and easily, right, by status, by who's assigned, by who reported it, definitely a lot of value there just to have that all within Zoho projects.
Yeah. All right, and moving on. Zoho inventory, what's new? This is kind of nice. It's July 2022 inventory update. They have a shipments module. So it
Oh,
used to
thank
be.
goodness.
I
Thank goodness. I
knew you were
actually
going to
hadn't
love
read
this
this one
one.
yet. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We've needed that forever. It's always been a record in Zoho inventory. They've just never shown it to you anywhere. So you basically would just have a package that was shipped, and you'd have to look at any shipments from a package perspective. Splitting that out into shipments obviously makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
a big update there for Cody, who I'm sure is watching on our team. That one's just for you. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll be able to find some usage there.
It's kind of nice. They've also got some usage stats, and you can auto scan expenses. That's part of an expense update that came as well. You can now have custom fields in pick lists, so you can now add additional information like the status, location of items in pick lists. That's very nice as well, I think. And then they made some
Yeah, a
updates to the
need to
overall.
have for pick
Yeah,
lists.
yeah.
You need to be able
So,
to know what bin it's in.
yeah.
So
But the
yeah,
headline
overall
is
nice
definitely
updates
the
there.
headline.
Yeah, shipments module. That's thank goodness, right? Because you really need to track those by different statuses as well. It's not just a package that's been shipped, right? You really do
Yep.
need to know if it's delivered, if it's delayed, what's going on. So nice updates kind of across the board.
All righty, and moving on, Zoho meeting attendees and co-organizers can now view shared PowerPoint materials on webinars from within the Zoho Meeting mobile app. So Zoho Meeting is kind of interesting in that it very nicely allows you to kind of have little assets on the side that people can download and view. And so now it just wasn't available on mobile. Now they've rolled it out on both iOS and Android. So very simple little update, but for those of you that are avid Zoho Meeting users, you've got someone who's on mobile and you can say, hey, if you want to look at that PowerPoint I've attached or whatever, they can't do it. Now they can. Uh, very, very nice. All
Awesome.
right. And with that, Tyler, I believe that brings us to our implementation of the week.
Alrighty, so this is a pretty nerdy implementation, but one that we've used a couple times when we're doing either migrations or kind of data cleanup. So we more wanted to toss it out there more for the concept, right? So if someone's running into these types of similar issues, that they know that there is in fact a way to fix it. So oftentimes, if we're doing a migration or we're doing kind of like a cleanup of what's already in Zoho, one of the first things that we try to look at are all the records linked up properly to what they need to be linked to, right? So an example would be we're going to talk kind of on accounts and deals in this case. Is you'd imagine that pretty much every single deal should be linked up to an account record, right? Because if you're doing a deal, it's probably for some type of company. But in reality, what will happen is as systems go on, if customization is done to them that might not be a best practice, or if you're migrating from a system that has kind of junky data, you might not have all of those relationships properly created. And even worse, the data that you need to make those relationships might be spread across multiple fields. So in this case, like imagine if we have a deal that has a field for an account ID, it has a field for a company name, and then it has a field for a website, right? And of course, it wouldn't really be optimal to have all those fields, but oftentimes we're not engaging from optimal, right? And that's kind of why people are getting in touch with us. And so in reality, right, we could use an account ID, a company name, or a website to link a deal to an existing account. But intuitively, we kind of know that some of those options might be better than others, right? So we might determine that account ID is the best option. So if those line up, let's use that. Company name is our second best option. And then if neither of those work, let's check if we have a matching website, kind of as a fallback, because that's a pretty decent option too to line things up. And so what we can do is actually pull all this data into analytics just using the CRM connector, and then do essentially a like priority based join where we try a join on the best option. If that doesn't line up, try it on the second best. And if that doesn't line up, try it on the third best or fourth best, fifth best, right? You can kind of go on and on. What this allows us to do is create as many of the relationships as we possibly can while prioritizing doing it with the best piece of data, right? But not making it solely reliant on having that best piece of data if we know that it's not there for a decent amount of records. Last but not least, kind of the nice thing about doing this through analytics after you've already dumped it into the CRM is that we can export it back out with all of the necessary record IDs. So in this case, like an account ID or a deal ID, and actually just import it directly into the CRM to create all those relationships that the table has kind of given us. So again, kind of a nerdy update or an implementation here, but one that we do use in these kind of data management scenarios. And just to highlight it, it's kind of one of those powerful things about Zoho Analytics is that it's not just a place to build reports and dashboards. It's also a place to actually manage your data, right? And set it up to make significant updates back into those sources like the CRM.
Excellent. Excellent. So, and if I guess if it runs through like the all the scenarios and it can't find a match, it just creates an orphan field for it, or it just flags it out as an orphan. You
Exactly.
got to
Well, you
match it
can
up
kind of have
later.
it highlight those, right? You know, if we ran these 10,000 deals through it, 9,500 of them lined up. Here's 500 where there was just nothing. All three of these fields are empty, right? And you're going to have to go through these ones manually or determine what to do with them.
All right. With that, Tyler, let's move on to the co-chair over at Club Zenatta, shall we? All right. This is from Tom, one of our senior developers, who is put out using a client-side scripting to add default product when creating a quote in the CRM. So fairly nice. If you're not familiar with client-side scripting, basically this runs locally in your browser. And when you are taking an action, it can basically, when if you check a box, if you're creating a new deal, there's a variety of things. It will basically run a script that will maybe fill in different fields, do different things, create different objects and records. We use it extensively, Tyler. I mean, I think there's so many use cases for this. We actually use it, when we create a deal, you want the name to be the same for every deal. You want that naming structure the same for every deal. Maybe there are 4 or 5 fields in the deal that are almost always the same. You're manually filling them out each and every time. This can do it for you. Pull all kinds of information. Maybe you want to pull information from the account into the deal. You want to pull information from the contact that's associated with the deal into the deal. You can do that. This is just another example of using client-side scripting to drag a product in when you're creating a quote inside of a CRM. So you can just automatically do that. I imagine it's basically looking at what's going on in the deal and automatically dragging those products in for you. But
Yeah, it could be
uh,
conditional, right? So if you know that a certain deal type should always include a certain product. In this case, I think it's a really simple use case of we're adding a shipping cost to basically every quote. So just go ahead and auto add that line item so they don't have to select it. That's kind of a lot of what we find ourselves doing with client scripting is it's just what are those things that happen every time you create a record that you just don't want to have to type in, right? And like at the end of the world, if they have to add a line item and add shipping cost, it's not going to take them 5 minutes, but if they're doing 20 quotes and each time it takes us 30 seconds, right, you can save people, a decent amount of time and make the system a lot more fun to use. So good implementation there. We find ourselves doing more and more with client scripting because of those those kind of instant load benefits.
Yeah, fantastic. And if you haven't checked out Club Zenatta, that is our community where we let all of our customers, non-customers, employees of Zenatta, we all kind of gather, we answer questions, we discuss what's going on in Zoho. There's a lot of different areas in here. We have our general discussion forum, the code share forum, like we were talking about. We're putting up 1 to 2 snippets a week in there. If you want to ask us questions that we'll eventually get on the CRM Zen show, you can go ahead and do so in the Q&A for the CRM Zen forum. And then we got the Zoho News forum. Tyler and I don't necessarily cover every single story on the show every week. Sometimes we have to make some editorial decisions and leave some things out that we think might not be most important to our audience. But if you head over to the Zoho News forum, we're pretty much dropping all the new news in there during the week as it comes in. So you can kind of see that. That's what we ended up building the show off of. Anyway, a great little area to get questions answered, talk to other Zoho users. We hope you enjoy it, and that's over at club.zenatta.com. Check it out. And with that, let's get into our read of the week. All right. Zapier jumping on the webinar bandwagon, 8 webinar ideas for 2022. And so really they are just talking about things you might want to consider when doing your webinars. Talk about your product, address industry pain points, discuss industry trends, do celebrity interviews, topics from your sales team, expert insights, live demos, case studies, all of those kind of things. And they kind of just go through them and why you may wish to do them. One thing they don't talk about here that I will tell you that we do all the time is we go and we look for items that are searched for where there's very little content. And then we try to create content around those areas that are lacking content to try to kind of fill that void as well. That's not necessarily a webinar thing, but we do it with our webinars as well. But we also do it with a lot of our videos that we post up. So good, I would say pretty good advice here, Tyler. Nothing.
Yeah, I think one of the things I do like up at the very top of the article is that it kind of goes through a guide of making sure that you have a general plan and goal for your webinar, right? So right here, down just a little bit.
Right here. Yeah.
That, yeah. So essentially making sure that the type of webinar that you're doing matches your goal, right? Is your goal to generate 10 leads from the webinar? Is your goal to just create more awareness that you exist, right? And kind of pick those topics and concepts based on your general goal. So it's an important one because you don't just want to kind of throw stuff at the wall. As much as we can, we want to be intentional and do things like you're saying that either fill a void in content or kind of are in line with a certain goal that we're looking to accomplish with that webinar. So good quick read there. Obviously, we are big fans of webinars as a marketing tool. We do them all the time. So definitely worth taking a look at.
Yep. And I'll throw a couple more things in here when doing this. Make sure you dial in your YouTube channel if you're going to do a webinar. If you look at the Zoho One full product tutorial that we did a year and a half ago, it has 34,000 views. And I want to say about maybe 80, 90 people showed up for it tops, right? So, make sure you have really, really high quality recordings. You edit it exceptionally well. You get it posted on YouTube because the bulk, only so many people are going to show up live for your webinars at the end of the day. The one we did just a few months ago, 6 months ago on Zoho One was, goodness gracious, where's it at now?
Far
It
left
is
there,
already, what's that?
9,500 views.
Yeah, 9,000. Right. Already you've got, almost 10,000 views on that one. And again, less than 100 people showed up for it live. So, good quality video editing, get your YouTube going, SEO your YouTube. We talked about an app quite a while ago that kind of lives here, this, Channelytics from TubeBuddy. TubeBuddy is going to help you do so much with your video once you get it up there. So many pieces to doing a webinar and properly getting it out there and getting it marketed. And so many people, it's just the live webinar, and the version that they put up on the web is garbage. And it's just, so this doesn't cover that. This gives you the ideas for your webinar, and that's great. But there's so much more around that you should be thinking about. So anyway, nice article from Zapier and Daniel and Tuz. Good job, buddy. Thank you. And let's see what we've got over at Zenatta.com. All right. The team has written utilizing the new sync for Zoho campaigns. If you are not aware, we had some major changes to Zoho campaigns around the way that the data syncs in, around the way you actually build your lists, and all of those kind of things. And there's quite a bit to it. So we've got a little step-by-step guide here on how to go ahead and set this completely up. And it turns out, Tyler, we're still not on the new sync. We don't know why.
Really?
I didn't know that till this morning myself. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But I thought everybody was forced to it. But this is all your lists, all your segments, the sync, everything, how it works through. So a really nice article on how to get this set up. So if you're using Zoho campaigns, you haven't made the switch yet, you're going to be forced to do it soon. I suggest you read this little guide ahead of time. I think we did a video on this as well, didn't we?
Think so. We've got a couple out there on this topic.
Yeah. And by the way, great update to Zoho campaigns. Was needed for
Yeah.
a long time, and it's something that I'm glad they've got out there. So, all right. And with that, let's go to our pick of the week. We've got not one picks, but two picks. This is from a company called Iseka Services. I'm going to call it Iseka Services. They reached out to us. They have got two, and they said, "Hey, we just put out these new plugins in the marketplace, and we'd really like it if you guys would promote them." And then we went and we kind of looked through them. And the first one's kind of basic. This is the one they actually kind of talked to us about. It's called the LogixOne Chat, and it's basically SMS, WhatsApp, and Telegram messages inside Zoho CRM. And there are a lot of them that do that. But then they have this other one that this ties into, and it makes a lot more sense. And this is called the LogixOne Operator for Zoho CRM. And what they've done is created a full blown field service management plugin for Zoho CRM. And Zoho has an FSM. It's still in beta. It was released and it came out and it went into beta. We do a lot of work with Zuper. But I kind of went through and I reviewed this. I can't say that we've tried it yet but man, oh man, a ton of really, really interesting features that are associated with this. And the pricing on this is crazy. The pricing is, $40 per month for an entire organization, giving you 10 users, 130 a month for up to 50, and for 150 you're at 179 a month. The other interesting thing about this, Tyler, is this company basically is a Zoho partner who specializes in FSM. So that's interesting as well, because they're not just
Got it.
writing this in a vacuum, right? They're writing it specific to the needs of their clients. And I have a feeling they built this entire thing out for clients, and now they've gone ahead and released it. So something we may want to check out if you're looking for a good FSM solution. It might be worth giving this a try, reaching
Yeah,
out to
we'll
these
have to
guys,
take a
seeing what
look.
they have.
I'm interested in the scheduling piece there. The UI does look pretty nice for that. It's one of the
It
biggest
does.
things that the CRM, you can build a lot of FSM natively in the CRM, but the work order scheduling is just not ideal. You can surely do it with the CRM calendar, but for a lot of people, if they're used to a more custom built FSM tool, it will feel a little bit bare bones. So definitely
Yeah.
one that we'll need to check out a little further. And if any listeners or viewers have played with this tool before, please do let us know what you think, because we're always kind of looking for nice little extensions and plugins that can solve for some of those areas that Zoho just doesn't do natively.
Yeah, and they've got some interesting things. These guys are based out of, if I saw it here, it looks like they're down in Australia. They also have an office over in Indonesia. But they've got they do a lot of field service management. You can just tell and looking at what they're doing here. So, and nice Zoho partner. So I've never heard of you guys or met you guys. Love to have a chat with you someday. But nice job on this. And they've got a good looking website, and it seems like they've got their act together. So On the surface, it looks good. We'll dig in a little better, and we'll see from there. All right, and with that, let's head on over to our tip of the week. So this week we've pulled a couple more from our Zoho projects webinar. We've got a whole overview of Zoho projects. We broke it down into 4-minute overview. That's me yammering on, and then user management inside Zoho products. Again, this is us kind of just going through those kind of 2 key things inside of Zoho projects. We do have a whole series of other tips and tutorials coming on. But if you're looking for specific things in projects, instead of watching the entire hour-long Zoho projects webinar, we've kind of broken these out for you in nice little nuggets. And as always, if you like our stuff, please head over to youtube.com/Zenatta and click on that subscribe button. Click on that little bell to get notifications when we release new videos. So anyway, we want to thank everybody for their support. And it looks, Tyler, like, we're just about 400 users away from another angel getting his wings. So that's
There we
exciting.
go.
Always,
Every day a
always a
little bit
big
closer.
day. Always a big day. All right. With that, let's get to some Q&A. Okay, our first question comes from S. Engel after watching Zoho Campaigns How to Set Up Sign Up Forms Tutorial 2021. Hi there, how can I set up a campaign form and a forward page to an external thank you page? Couple ways about going around this. There is a redirect. There should be a redirect inside of Campaigns itself where you can actually redirect it to a thank you page. You're going to want to look probably in settings, and you're going to want to look for that redirect. And that's basically when they finish, they click submit on that. Where is it going? Another way to handle this is if you're a Zoho One user or you've got Zoho Forms, we consider that to be probably the preferred method rather than using the sign up forms that are inside of Campaigns. You can do so much more with those forms. You can also have a redirect there. But kind of, I think in our thinking, Tyler, best practice is person signs up for one of your campaigns, write it to the CRM, properly segment it, make sure it's segmented properly, CRM, push it over to Campaigns and kind of do it that way. It's really the better way to do it. But if you're standalone, you can find that redirect. Anything you'd add to that?
No, I think you nailed on the head. We just always would
All right.
point all our data to CRM first and sync it to Campaigns. So we'll generally use a different form rather than the native ones out of Campaigns.
Alrighty, and then after watching the Zoho inventory item management tutorial, Shoking asked, "Hi, can you show me how to import all inventory with an item group?" And we checked this out before the
Yeah, so
show. What'd you find?
this is a really sneaky little button. If you go into inventory and go into the item group section, in the top right under the little 3 lines, if you click that, it will pull down a drop down that you can use to import item groups. Within there, they're actually going to give you a template, and there are 2 columns in that template that you need to be aware of. So you have a product name, that's essentially the name of your item group, and then you have a attribute name, which would be the individual item. So like their example is for iPhones, so the product name is iPhone, 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 right, in those 3 rows, and then the attribute name is 6, 6s, and 6 plus. Gives you an idea when they put the template in there. It's obviously been a couple of years, but you kind of have to structure your import that way, where one column is going to repeat that product name, and then a column further to the right is going to actually do the attribute names for each individual item that's in that group.
All right. Next question. Ben VB, after watching the Zoho Desk Full Product Tutorial 2022, asked, "Thanks for the awesome video. Just a quick question. Can I use one desk for multiple websites? I have multiple e-commerce websites. I'm just wondering if I can have one desk but have multiple email addresses from my websites linked into one so that all tickets go into one place." Really simple,
Absolutely.
Ben. Yep,
Yep.
yep. You basically just choose the emails you want, forward them into Desk, and from there you can categorize them, and away you go. Anything? I don't know if there's anything to add to that, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, you would just point more than one different support address. You may want to consider having different departments if they're like totally different teams and companies. You can have multiple departments in one desk account and kind of have the tickets point to those different sections. You might say, you know what, all the support is done by the same team. I don't really care. You could point it all to one. But just to make it clean with having your respond with address kind of separate, so that if I email support address one, my response is definitely going to come from support address one. You might want to do the different departments. But other than that, you'll have no problems just setting up multiple forwards. And you'll just need to figure out how you want to organize it on the back end.
All right, Daniel Lehman watched our 3 pro tips for lead conversion mapping in Zoho CRM. He says he's basically got a sandbox set up, and whenever he's in a lead and he clicks convert, he's getting an error saying the record's deleted. Daniel, this is a bug. Tyler and I were talking about this before the show. There's definitely something wrong. You're going to need to reach out to Zoho support, have them try to check this out on the back end, but you should be able to convert a lead when you're inside the sandbox.
Yep.
All righty. And then over at Club Zenatta, Scott asked, I hate how Zoho Inventory Books uses serial numbers. Has anyone created a custom module in CRM for serial number tracking? If so, what does it look like? Yes, we
Yeah, so
have.
we do this all the time. Essentially, you have generally what we'll call it is, you'd have like a customers module, right, of your accounts, and then you have your products module. So what we'll do is we'll kind of build a module in the middle, right, where one side points to the product, one side points to the customer, and then you have a field for the serial number. We'll call it something like customer products or serialized inventory. You can also kind of do it in conjunction with books and inventory. So like when a package gets created and you assign those serials, you can actually have that automatically populate the module in CRM. And then you're kind of managing it from there on a go forward basis. So yeah, it's pretty common inside of inventory. As I'm sure you found, Scott, like you can assign serial numbers to either invoices or packages, but then you can't really like do anything with them later. So if you're doing like an on-site maintenance on a specific serialized item, there's no way to do that in inventory. So we would generally always do kind of what you're thinking of making those in CRM. And then it's kind of just up to you to determine how you want to populate that data, where oftentimes we will do it just automatically from the books and inventory side.
All right. And Kevin, hey, Kevin, shout out there. I know there are paid address verification services out there. Has anyone used Smartly or a similar service? Any code snippets to connect and verify? Thanks so much for advance. Uh, Kevin, thank you for participating in our community. For those of you who don't know, Kevin's an MVP over in the Zoho community, so I'm glad to have him over here. Yeah, we've used Smarty before. There's an API for it. You can do instant address verification. Guess we can go ahead and share that code with Kevin, huh?
Yeah, it might
Shoot
be a
that
good
over to
one for
him.
the code share. Drop it in there.
Yeah,
It's nothing
yeah.
crazy. They basically just have a third party API. You send an address, it comes back with a status code and either a formatted address or not if it can't format it for you. But yeah, nothing crazy. We use Smarty all the time. Good service, fair price.
Yep. And we'll get that over to you, Kevin. Maybe we drop it in the code show this week. All right. Tegan asks from our live chat over here, I have a question about analytics. How does one unearth the back end data when looking at a graph? For example, the first time reply graph.
So if you
Tyler?
click into any section of the graph, you'll have an option to either view underlying data or drill down. If you want to look at the raw data, you'll just click on the view underlying data, and that will basically do a little pop-up of the full data table within Zoho Analytics. I will say sometimes it gives you way more data than you need on that. It'll give you a bunch of like record IDs and useless stuff. So when it pops up in the top left, you're actually able to add and remove columns. And so I recommend that you do that. Just kill some of those ones that you don't care about. And then next time you do that same view underlying data, it's going to save your preferences of what columns should show up.
And I think that is going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us, Tyler. Next week is Thursday again at 2 p.m. Pacific time. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time for the show. So if you want to join us live, we'll see you then. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please head over to club.zenatta.com and leave them there. Or if you want to talk to Tyler or myself, head over to zenatta.com and book a meeting with us.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as links to all the stories we discussed today. We'd love if you would follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you.
Freddie, playing your smooth jazz.